Welcome and good morning once again to Talking Point on this Wednesday, the 16th of February. My name is Sean Michael Small. Once again, always glad to be with you, good people, to speak about the issues, the important topics of the day, the important topics that are affecting our lives and our nation. And with me to have that discussion, I am pleased once again, she is back. No more extended breaks like over December, hopefully. Former Minister of Finance as well as an attorney at law and legal scholar, Mrs. Karen Shishera. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning to you, Sean, and you can assure your listeners that and viewership that my absence was unavoidable because I certainly enjoy being part of WSN and participating in this show, which I think is so very informative. Good morning to you. Good morning to your viewers.
So, Karen, we want to get straight into the topics, and tomorrow we have something very interesting happening. And it's the situation, the circumstances around the scenario has changed. Tomorrow is the deadline for public sector workers to be vaccinated. And the interesting question comes up with regards to what's going to happen, because throughout the entire pandemic, one of the questions that we had was, and we had Rosemary Ballantyne, Professor Ballantyne here to speak about it, early last year. So that question has been on our minds for almost about 8 to 10 months with regards to mandatory vaccination. And now we've reached probably where the government has come closest to mandatory vaccination. They've only mandated it for public sector workers. Then they pushed the deadline back after talking about it. They weren't ready to try to enforce it. Now we're a day away. They might always come and say, well, we're not going to do it anymore, or we're going to delay it again. But given the state of affairs and even how the pandemic is going, we have to ask, what's going on? Is there a point to this anymore? Is it necessary? Because it's a serious thing to affect the rights of citizens and to suspend those rights. So, Karen, what do you have to say about this?
Yes, I think the issue is not as straightforward as the government clearly has seen. And we are hearing from the Attorney General that he has some piece of legislation that he is preparing to put before the cabinet within the next 2 weeks, presumably to deal with the situation. Now, when you're dealing with public servants, they fall under the Essential Services Division of the Industrial Court. They are part of the Industrial Relations Act in the sense that many of the reasons for termination would apply, although there's a particular procedure that applies specifically to civil servants through their various commissions and so on. But the point about it is that under what basis, because they also do what has to remember, one, any complaint goes to the Essential Services Division, which is separate from the General Division of the Industrial Court. That's one. Two, public servants are not allowed to strike. So are you allowed to lock them out in a sense? Because if you're telling me I can't come in there into my place of work, but I also cannot strike, it seems to be an unequal sort of situation, or it can be interpreted that way. Another critical issue, of course, as you have brought up, is the constitutional rights. I think what separates Trinidad and Tobago from a lot of the other Eastern Caribbean jurisdictions in particular is our Industrial Relations Act and the statement of the president of the Industrial Relations, the Industrial Court, saying that once you have a collective agreement, in the case of public servants, it's governed by the various pieces of legislation and the omnibus legislation called the Civil Service Act. And there's negotiated between the CPO, representing the Minister of Finance, and the requisite association, because they're not the unions, the PSA, and then they form a memorandum of understanding and put this into regulations. But in a sense, it is their agreement. And what she has said and that is true of any contract, which is what it is at the end of the day, is that if you want to change any terms and conditions of a contract, it cannot be done unilaterally. It must be done in a consensual mutual agreement. And that is the sticking point. Um, on that issue, I know at one point in time, the government was looking or appeared to be looking at a case called Surat versus Attorney General, which was the Equal Opportunities Commission legislation, which was passed by a simple majority, because the issue for the government is that it's not that they can't pass a law, but to pass the law, they would need a three-fifths majority. The reason being that any legislation dealing with freedom of movement, freedom of expression, freedom, those types of things under the Constitution, you need to be able to show that it is proportionate. You must be able to show that it must override the individual rights over the rights of the community, but more importantly, you need a three-fifths majority. So I don't know that I think the government knows that the mandatory vaccination, for whatever reason, they cannot impose it by ordinary passage.
Simple majority.
And a simple majority. And the question is, can you furlough them? Can you lay them off? There's nothing in our legislation that provides for laying off. However, in practice, through the case law, and the case that anybody who's listening wants to look at, they can look it up. ArcelorMittal gives a very detailed explanation of layoff. But a layoff could only be, that's where you pay me, furlough is equivalent to the furlough. You don't pay me for 3 months, reasonable period, but 3 months is deemed to be reasonable, and after that you're dealing with retrenchment. Can the government invoke that? That has always been a private sector issue, and it's always been because of economic situations. The price of steel fell, the price of oil and gas fell, we just can't continue to pay. So the alternative is, do we terminate you, do we retrench you, or do we lay you off for a period of time and let you take vacation and all of that? So it's a difficult problem for the government. And I don't know what pushback you'll get from the unions, but I'm not sure what that legislation is going to look like in the first place.
Well, I want to go back to something that one of the earlier phrases you said that the workers cannot strike even though they're being told, those who will be furloughed, that they can't come to work. So it's an interesting potential oversight of the law. I can't strike because you need me to work. But when you're not allowing me to work, does the law still prevent me from striking? And we were able to get into contact with the current president of the PSA, Leroy Batiste, and he was willing to give a comment. And essentially, he said, one of the things that he said was, this is just the government continuing to use bullying tactics against the public sector workers. I'm paraphrasing, so forgive me. But essentially, that's what he called it out, because as you pointed out, there's a question as to what is the authority under which they will be allowed to do this. And even the current president of the Public Service Association, he was not able, he didn't know of any specific legal standing, law, precedent that allowed them to do this. So he as well was sort of left, all he could say is, this is an attempt to try to force it through, potentially bully the people, force them to do something that they don't want to do. Now we're a day away, and the question has come up, what's going to happen? Because, as you mentioned, the Attorney General might have legislation to bring forward. But how long will that take? They will probably need opposition support. They probably won't get that, regardless of if the bill is a good bill or not. So what will they do tomorrow is the question. But then furthermore, is now the time, because I personally do have this question. I believe in vaccinations, and I actually still, if I had my wish, everybody would choose to be vaccinated now and take the 3 doses, and we would have a vaccine for the kids and everybody. Because while the pandemic seems like it's slowing down and it's safe, this is a situation where we don't know for sure what's going to happen, and we don't know if it could reverse course on us all of a sudden and ambush us. But I do wonder if the arguments that the government might have had when the murder rate was significantly higher, And internationally, the situation was a lot more dire, as opposed to now where internationally certain jurisdictions are removing restrictions. Israel and the UK, I think they removed even more restrictions. Could it be that the legal arguments that could have supported any sort of mandatory vaccinations, they are slowly being eroded away? And what's going to happen now if this situation is challenged in the courts? Because you mentioned off air, you feel that's more or less where this is going to end up.
Yeah. And let me just say first, what is the basis upon which they have implemented? They implemented what they call a safe zone policy. And a safe zone policy is that you can't enter certain areas unless you're vaccinated. And they're doing that under the public health regulations, which is under the Public Health Act. And the Public Health Act was passed before we became independent. And because of the saving clause, both in our independence constitution and later on in our Republic Constitution, Section 6, what it really says is that if any act was before we became a republic, before we became independent, constitutional, it will continue to be constitutional, even if at this stage with the new, with this new republic, new independent nation, would otherwise be unconstitutional. So all the regulations and the Public Health Act are constitutional because of the savings provision in our Constitution. So I suspect that the safe zone policy, from what I read, is being implemented under the public health regulations. But like in anything, the Constitution, there must be a balancing act. And you must be able to show, in my view, the need or the necessity to implement such a draconian law, because what it can amount to, since I cannot strike, then you cannot lock me out, because lockout is part of a strategy when an employer, and I usually talk about private sector, when an employer is trying to get workers to sort of force them to, or persuade them to break ranks with the union and come over and sign the new agreement that they have. And the lockout can only last a certain time. But if I cannot strike, you can't lock me out. So I think that this whole thing about passing a law, which I suspect is going to try to implement a law that does not require a special majority, as the Equal Opportunity Commission did not, and rely on the public health regulations. I don't know where they're going with it. But what I do know is that it is going to be challenged, and I do believe that the examples of furloughing or layoff, which can lead to retrenchment after 3 months, if you don't call me back on the job, the policy has been after 3 months, you've got to retrench. And in this case, the government's rationale, which is using the private sector, simply because they cannot pay. That's not true. They pay more in transfers and subsidies that they're paying in salaries to public servants. So that argument goes through the window. So they're going to have to be able to establish that the need for this draconian law that infringes my constitutional rights is necessary by evidence. The evidence, when the private sector comes and says, they have to lay off workers, they have to provide the evidence. Global prices of steel have collapsed X-ray, and they expect it to continue, and they have their data to show that is why they cannot continue at this point in time temporarily to pay workers, and as soon as things get better, they will bring them back on stream. But I don't know what the argument will be. So we wait and see.
Well, another thing to consider, when they implemented safe zones for private sector entities, everybody participating had to be vaccinated. But for whatever reason, they did not want to do it for schools. This is just off of the jump when the safe zones were implemented. And then when they mentioned, or they brought forward the idea of safe zones now for government offices, they said, well, only our workers would have to be vaccinated. Members of the public will be allowed to access government services even though they're unvaccinated. And I think the problem there is you're mixing, why is it that people coming into the building could be unvaccinated, but I am forced to be vaccinated for some reason? So that and all, even when you could have made a better case for mandatory vaccination. I do wonder if that and all might have undercut their argument, or at least the one that they initially brought forward. And this is why they're delaying and they're holding off and they're delaying. And for all we know, this could just be a ploy. They just wanted to see who will get vaccinated and hold off from actually implementing it. I think Canada, one of our young contributors, Anish Pandey from Canada, he mentioned I think he's in Ottawa, he mentioned that they did that in that territory. But it's interesting to see what's going to happen, because if the government blinks tomorrow and says more delays, I don't know if the PSA is going to take them seriously. What do you think about that?
Well, I think they're going to, well, based on, no, I don't know. They might try and, play their cards tight to their chest and give it a go. What we have to remember is that we have an Industrial Relations Act, and it's a pretty pro-labor, as they say, is a part of social engineering. And I have a feeling that has acted as a significant constraint on the government taking action. And then when you look at what is the principle behind it, the principle behind it is that unvaccinated persons can, and I don't know where the science to support that is, I know unvaccinated persons have a much higher risk of death than vaccinated persons. And I, for one, believe in vaccination. I am vaccinated, and all the persons I know, and those who I do know did not get vaccinated, 2 or 3 of them have died, and they were not vaccinated.
Yes.
So I don't want it to come across as though what we're talking about is rights. Mandatory is the key word. It's if you've given me an injection without my consent, that amounts to an assault, So I think, yes, it's an assault. So the issue is not so much the vaccine, it's the mandatory component of it. And I think that is where the government may find itself in trouble, and may find that whatever legislation it's coming forward with will be subject to some judicial scrutiny. And the President of the Republic, the Industrial Court, has already stated very clearly, come to consensus, come to agreement, come and find a way out. Maybe some people can work off not on the premises, find some solution. But as far as she's concerned, unless there is consensus and a mutual agreement, as far as she's concerned, on the Industrial Relations Act and the Industrial Court, which is the Central Division, which will hear the matter, it appears to me that the court is going to rule that you can't enforce something because it amounts almost a constructive dismissal. When you put in place a provision into my work, which was not, and you do certain things that make it impossible for me to function, it is as if you are dismissing me, not I am leaving the job. So there are all kinds of permutations to this issue.
Well, I think we have to leave the conversation there, but that's a strong point there at the end of the day. It might be a ploy to constructively dismiss some public sector workers. We don't know. Hopefully, we will hear from the president of the PSA tomorrow in response to whatever new direction the government decides to take this. But I would like to reiterate Karen's point at WASN. We would like to encourage everybody to get vaccinated. So to do so, consult with your physician if you haven't been vaccinated already, particularly if you are elderly and have comorbidities. Consult with your physician, because the death rate is not yet 0. But we'll stick a pin in this conversation here. I'm sure there'll be another chapter soon. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll get into more important topics of the day. We're actually going to revisit one a little bit, get Karen's take on something that, again, I think is very serious, but perhaps we as a nation, we're not taking it serious enough. Even if we're taking it seriously, I don't think we're taking it serious enough. Stay tuned. You're watching Talking Point on WESN, your content capital.
Gift giving during a lockdown can still be hassle-free with a gift from FanZone, with delivery options available nationwide. Visit and browse our Facebook and Instagram pages for all your official licensed merchandise and apparel, and have it delivered to your door. Find us on Facebook and Instagram. FanZone, we've got you covered.
for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, it's for all of us in public.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Point. And those of you who watch this show every day will know that one of the topics that we have covered very repeatedly and extensively is the situation with the merit list, the appointment of the new Commissioner of Police, the current situation of the acting appointment of Deputy Commissioner, because that's his substantive push, Jacob, as well as the ongoing saga and perhaps drama of the politicians behind the scenes who technically are not even supposed to be involved in the process at this point because the list hasn't even reached Parliament yet, and we're already on list number 2, and now we are at the 5th 6 month without a Commissioner of Police, while technically we are still operating under public health regulations for a global pandemic. Only in Trinidad, because as some people will say, or they will question if we're a real place. But something has come up with regards to the latest chapter, and Karen has not had a chance to weigh on this. And of course, I've waited for 2 months for Karen's opinion on this overall topic, so we have to hear it on this now. SORT has been disbanded, and Karen reminded me yesterday that I believe Deputy Jacob said that they weren't, Acting Commissioner of Police Jacob said that they weren't going to disband SORT, and then now they did disband SORT. The reason why is, and the reason is not a bad reason, it's just the timing of the reason is interesting. Because the reason is with regards to the death of 2 suspects in the Andrea Barrett case. But that was almost a year ago. It might actually be very close to a year ago. So how is that the last straw when we had a year of SORT still technically existing and potentially operating, but the last straw was last year? The question is, the allegations, the implications of SORT, is there more there? Could the originator, the creator, the man whose brainchild was sought and not sought. Could this have something to do with the former commissioners all of a sudden disfavor being seen by the current administration? Karen, what is your ideas?
Right, and of course we are guided by what is made available to us in the public, so that whatever we say or whatever I say certainly isn't because I am privy to other information or anybody sending an envelope under my door. They're free to do that, but I don't get that. But what I gathered from when I read it, the assistant commissioner who's acting as, de facto commissioner, Jacob, just very recently, November the 22nd, said there was no intention of disbanding SORT. Now, as you know, the same phonic sound, but the SAUTT version was that of former Prime Minister Patrick Manning. And there were a number of rules and regulations that applied to being able to qualify to be a member. Then the new commissioner, Griffith, when he came into office in a matter of 2 months or so, set up his own version of SORT. And what he made of that, what he did is he put as members of this new entity persons from the Army, because he came from the Defense Force, and gave them the designation of Special Reserve Police. But what really, I think, is the reason behind the sudden, what they say, there's a French expression, volte-face, in other words, a complete 180-degree change in Commissioner Jacobs' position, is the Americans and the British have made it very clear to them that we fund internationally organizations, police organizations that are fighting criminal activity, and they are clearly unhappy with what has happened over the last few years. I can start with one, the police killings. There was a Guardian article in 2020 that said over the first 6 months of 2020, there's an almost 86% increase in police killings than over the previous year. So there were substantial increases in the police killings. There was also that fiasco with DSS Susu, where they caught on camera a person dressed in, I don't know if he's dressed in army clothes, because he did assign persons to his special SORT, stuffing his pockets with money. I don't know what he did with the money. Maybe he handed it over. But that's certainly the thing. But the last straw, as you rightly said, but it is a culmination of things. But the last straw was the 2 killings in the Andrea Barat case, because I think what the Americans and the Canadians wanted to be careful about, that they didn't pull the plug without having enough evidence. Because remember, the Commissioner of Police seemed to agree with Hernandez, his assistant commissioner, that they fell off a chair. But of course, the autopsy said it was blunt force trauma, and the videos do not support that. And I think that may have been, and then the autopsy, I think, was the final blow to that theory. And what also was a matter of great concern also too was Hackshaw, who was an assistant commissioner of police, who originally the Commissioner of Police Griffith in the early days in May said, they looked into it, nothing is wrong, and the police, what's wrong with the police having money? And then all of a sudden, the PCA said, no, there's something here, and we're sending it to the DPP. And all of a sudden, he changed his tune and says that, yes, he's sending it to the DPP. So all the thing with Hackshaw, with the police killings, with the FUL, I mean, that was I think that last one was, that last report sealed the deal too. Because as you recall, it wasn't just a significant increase in persons who were allowed to have firearms. And according to the report, people who had convictions or people who are awaiting criminal convictions were given provisional licenses. But more importantly, is authorities for $1 million. And what is alleged or what is stated in the report is he was breaking up contracts so that he wouldn't, to the same person, for the same product, but breaking it up into smaller contracts so that he would not apparently avoid the 1 million ceiling. In addition to which, many of the people who applied did not have the character references, which is necessary, certain credentials necessary to apply for tendering. And the one that maybe comes back to what you are saying about what is happening with the Police Service Commission and appointing, what the report says, and Justice Stanley John, a former Court of Appeal judge, has said that he stands by his report. What is also in the report is a 7.2 million contract for the acquisition of vehicles was given to a person allegedly a family member or related to a senior member of the government. Now, if there's any truth in that, and secondly, that a senior member of the government was given a license without having the necessary requirements thing, that is something that the government certainly would not want to come out in the public domain. So when and we could only speculate, why didn't they let that report go forward? Because at the end of the day, it's just like CL Financial, sorry, but I feel the brunt of CL Financial. You know, they never want to come out with CL Financial because you know why? People on both sides will be in trouble.
Right.
But in this case, I believe, based on what I have read, and the fact that the Stanley John, who has no horse in the race, and came in there to do an investigation and did it, I think, in a very professional manner, if we are to be guided by what we have read, the government itself would not want that report to find its way into Parliament because it seems as though it may compromise its own ministers. And that is perhaps one of the reasons why they decided to scrap the merit list and start all over again. I don't know what is in basis on. You realize the president is very quiet.
Yes.
The president is very quiet. Let me just say this because for your viewers, for them to understand, I'm not talking legalese, but she's a lawyer, and I can assure you it is lawyers advising. Lawyers advising. Under the Constitution, when it comes to the Police Service Commission, when the Police Service Commission has finished their procedure and gotten their merit list together under Section 123(2), the next thing is for them to take that list, the order of merit list in descending order, and submit it to the president. 123(4) gives her no authority to do anything except send that to the Parliament. Now, when you get involved to the point that you withdrawing a list, and a list is withdrawn, and apparently somebody from government was in there, allegedly, and the president is could send back, have a list withdrawn. Is she not usurping her powers? Is she not getting into the business of the Police Service Commission? Because the effect of what she's doing is saying, take it back and look back at your merit list, because I have something here that if you look at it, you may have to revisit your merit list. Does she have that authority? And I want to say one thing more on that. And the reason I am so strong on it, is that earlier in August, when Blessy Prasad wrote to her in her capacity as a chair of the Police Service Commission, for the president under legal notice 183(4) to appoint an acting commissioner of police and deputy commissioner of police until the positions were filled by going through the parliamentary process, she wrote back and very clearly said that she is a creature of statute, that she can do nothing more than what statute allows her to do. And that 183(4) does not give her any power to appoint anybody to act. All it does is gives her the list, but nothing more. So how come when Blessy Prasad came to her with a list submitted as per 123(3) to the president could only take it and notify Parliament and let whatever the Police Service Commission decided to overlook for whatever reason, and also the Police Complaints Authority, they too overlooked all those reports in the FUL. And by the way, a lot of the things that were being reported in the Express by Denise Wren in those articles for over 2 years, it appears when you read what was leaked about the Stanley John report, it has been confirmed. It has been confirmed, so it was not mischief making.
Yeah.
So how could the Police Service Commission, in its vetting process, not have looked at that? How it is that the Police Complaints Authority not looked at that? Maybe the answer lies in what is in that report, that they do not want to go to Parliament. It's 6 months now. And why can't they use the merit list that they have? What gives them the authority to go and do over another merit list? Where's the legal authority, legal opinion? They have not given it to us. I would love to see it. The country would love to see it. That the president does only what she says the four walls of the Constitution allow her to do. Make the notification. It does not allow her to get into a conversation, and as far as I could see, with the head of the Police Service Commission that caused a list to be withdrawn. What does that mean?
And here's the interesting thing, because I think, first of all, we have to say that these are all allegations. They are claims made. Nothing has been technically proven in court, right? Although the claims are pretty damning, and I think it's reasonable to say that, you could believe that there's some truth behind it, right? But technically speaking, hasn't been had its day in court. So, okay. Fair enough. However,
wait, Sean,
go
ahead.
But however,
go ahead.
We're in an interesting situation where, and I think people need to understand that even if we agree with the claims being made, we are caught between a rock and a hard place where there might be some serious accusations against the candidate. However, the taking the process and usurping it in the way that it potentially was, based on what we know, is also a serious issue. And now I think people need to understand when we speak on the issue, technically, it's two different things. You could even say it's three different things. Well, it's two different things. It is the process.
They're related.
Right, they're related, but the accusations are going to different groups of people. A serious set of allegations are going towards the former commissioner, which have to be looked into at this point.
Sure.
And then the situation as to why they wanted the government potentially, because again, hasn't been proven in court, so okay, we'll just say potentially. But why is it that they wanted to keep things out of the parliamentary debate? Because, we had a question, and again, I don't think it was proper procedure in a technical sense. Stanley John gave the report to the National Security Council, but the National Security Council did not commission the report. The report should have gone to the PSC, and if the PSC wanted to share it with the NSC, fine. But he gave it directly to the National Security Council. And maybe that is an indicator that, and this is my assumption now, that the contents of the report was so serious that he felt that he was compelled to give it now to the National Security Council, because the PSC, they're only with regards to the appointment of the commissioner. And if there are breaches of the law, he wanted to pass it on now to the national security apparatus proper.
Okay, so I want to make 3 points. The purpose of the report was not in pursuit of any criminal proceedings.
Yes.
It was in pursuit of hiring you to do a job. A very important job under the Constitution. Very, very important, because you have a lot of powers as a police commissioner, and therefore you have to be very careful of that. So it was not done to bring criminal proceedings. It's just like the commissions of inquiry they have. They're not, if at the end of the day, the information that comes out allows you now to proceed with criminal proceedings, that's a different thing. And then you have a right to be heard and all that good stuff. That's one thing. Secondly, what we started off, and I've got a little sidetracked with talking about why doesn't the president explain a position? Mm-hmm. She was very clear. Mm-hmm. She was very clear to explain why she could not appoint anybody, and she went through the law and so on. So why is she not clear about immediately withdrawn that day, and what gave her the authority to do that. And the third thing is it is abundantly clear to me that the reason why SORT has been disbanded is not because Jacob had an epiphany and the government had an epiphany. It is because the Americans and the British who give financial support have threatened to withdraw their support because of the way in which this SORT has been run by this Commissioner of Police, who, by the way, is always singing his own praises, but he forgets to say that the second highest murder rate in this recorded history in this country was under his stewardship in 2019. He was the only Commissioner of Police in 2019. And when he wants to look at 2020 and 2021, he seems to forget we had public health regulations and a state of emergency. And I suspect if you look at any country, which is what happened with Kamala Processor administration, the numbers fell. And that's what states of emergency and the public health, which operates as a quasi-state of emergency, will do. So stop taking credit for that. But why don't you talk about the 538 murders that occurred under your stewardship? Then the whole thing with the FBL, which Stanley John is saying that he is not xyling from what he has said. And what about Hackshaw? When Hackshaw, his ACP, with the what they call suspicious transactions were reported, he came out and defended him and said the TTPS had done the investigation and there was absolutely nothing in it. And why can't the police have money? And it's only when the PCA decided to say, well, we found something wrong with it and we're sending it to the DPP, that suddenly he changed his tune and says, I'm sending it to the DPP. And then the DPP, he said that in June. And in July, you have the DPP coming out and saying he's still waiting from the report from the police commissioner. Yeah. So the FUL, with the DSS thing, with the 2 persons being dying in police custody, when you look at the Hackshaw matter, and guess what? And the murder rate being the highest under his stewardship, and the drop in the numbers coincided with a quasi state of emergency and a state of emergency for which he gave no credit to that. When you put all of that in the mix, when you put all of that in the mix, and why didn't the police service wait? Why didn't the police commission? Why didn't the police commission look into it? Why didn't they look into it?
I just like to point out. So to our viewers, what Karen means is when the pandemic started, I think people might forget. It's ironic, when we had the state of emergency, people were still kind of going around conducting their business. When the pandemic started, the very first few weeks and months, I'm talking March 2020, there were times, I can't speak for the rest of the country, obviously, but Port of Spain, Woodbrook, was a ghost town at times. So obviously, if nobody is out, there will be no crime. But I'll just like to point out, just to say, the Stanley John report, 30,000 per license. That's a lot of money, considering the amount of licenses that potentially went through.
And not only that, he reported, Sean, he reported that one person in 1 year got 20 firearms assigned to him. It's also reported that a person who had been convicted of a criminal charge was given a provisional firearms, and a person who had a matter pending in court was also given a provisional. And who alone? When he says he was being investigated, it is a unit, and he is the head of the unit. And by the way, the last point I want to make is under his stewardship, police killings increased by 80%. There's enough there that the Police Service Commission was derelict in its duty. The PCA was derelict in its duty. The president has yet to really explain how she could get involved in something where she's a creature of statute, and why is it the thing wasn't sent to the parliament for us to see who it is that got a 7.2 million contract to buy cars that, according to the report, is a relative of a senior cabinet member. I want to see who that is. And they don't want us to see who that is. and Trinidadians need to wake up. And unfortunately, my final point, because I come only on a Wednesday.
Your final point.
Final point. Yeah, my final point, Ray. Kind of final point. Right? Is that going back to the time of I have a dream. I always say I have a dream, man. You look at any time that people, what human beings have able to show their dissatisfaction with the way that the government is conducting business is the right to freedom of expression, freedom of assembly. And this government has used COVID-19, state of emergency, where they ran out of that and they closed it up early after, although the death rate was about the highest it had ever been. So I don't understand that. But and then tear gassing people to intimidate them, right? That they have been using these means to prevent people from going to the streets and peacefully demonstrating. When it was Section 34, he led that protest, and they had to squash the Section 34. Why is he not allowing people to come out and speak?
I'm gonna have to cut you there. We're definitely over time on this topic, but I do want to just point out a couple of things. One, this is why I said it's two issues, so it might look like Karen is complaining about both sides, and that's because while they're related, both sides have some serious answers that they have to give us. And with regards to what Karen said about the extrajudicial killings, all I will say is this. SORT was directly under the former commissioner's purview. They answered directly to him. The restructuring says that the new units will have a senior superintendent who answers to an ACP, who then answers to a DCP, who then answers to the COP. So, it's something to think about. Oh, Karen, wait, we have to go. We could get into it after 9 o'clock, but we have to go. Let's take a short break here, and then we'll get into our final quick topic before we have news on the hour, and Karen will give us her final point.
I'm joined on set today with Dr. Chelsea Garcia. She's a palliative specialist as well as internal medicine doctor as well as hospice care.
Palliative is for anyone with serious illness, whereas hospice is for someone that may die in the next 6 months. Now, unfortunately, because people confuse the word palliative with hospice, we see a lot of patients presenting late in the course of their illness.
So the first part about holding off the stick is knowing how to hold it. You're only allowed to play with the flat side of the stick. So the ball is not allowed to hit the back of your stick whatsoever.
What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andrew.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
A reminder from WESN. We urge you to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19. Stay safe by taking some simple precautions. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Wear a mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose or mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay at home. If you have a fever, cough and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention. Following the above can help us all to help each other.
Welcome back to Talking Point, and we spent quite a lot of time back on an old but extremely important topic. I want to reiterate the fact that it's not one side against the next side. It's two issues we have now. It has ballooned into two extremely important issues. That is to say, what the former commissioner did and what was going on with the corruption of the process. Maybe we could say that, right? Again, it is all alleged, but given what we have, we can only assume. However, I'd like to switch gears now, quick, with the few minutes that we have left. The political leader of the IDA in Tobago, Dr. Denise Sorry-Angus, she made an interesting comment when it was reported in the press there's a little bit of a spat between Tracy Davidson Celestine and Ansel Dennis. Over Ansel Dennis, Mr. Dennis is looking to challenge for leadership of the Tobago Council, and in response, Mrs. Davidson Celestine decided to say here's the reason why the PNM did so badly in the election, so one of the major contributing factors. But Dr. Angus said this is all irrelevant because ultimately the agenda would always be controlled by PNM officials in Trinidad. And I have to ask, the political hat now, Karen, not so much the ministerial hat and the lawyer hat, but just the political hat. Do you think that the Tobago Council, from all that we might have heard over the years, are they really just second fiddle to PNM officials in Trinidad? And do they really they're just there to be, well, the implications is a puppet executive body?
Well, I don't want to use that kind of personally to use that language, but it reminds me of, there are so many examples when you see these wars being fought around the world, India with Pakistan and Bangladesh, with West Pakistan and East Pakistan, and one seeing they are inferior to the other. And it's same thing, you can give many examples. So what I think they are saying is, yes, there's a good point. At the end of the day, all decisions go back to Parliament, and what is the representation in Parliament? I think there's maybe one person who represents Tobago affairs, and even when Cabinet makes decisions, I think only one person, if at all, is allowed into the Cabinet room. I'm not quite sure about that. But I want to say this too. I don't know if you see the winds are changing. The winds are changing. And I will just say this. And when I say what I say, it's not from a political position. It is as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. One of the concerns people have, and they're not being allowed to march or protest or to really give vent to their views, is that I think a lot of people are jaded and disenchanted with both parties. And this PDP seems to represent a fresh, something fresh and something untainted. And they've already indicated that they want to come to Trinidad. And, don't underestimate them, because A.N.R. Robinson came out of Tobago and ended up being our prime minister and then president. And I think right now that the PDP, if they play their cards right and ensure that they are not tainted with the brush of corruption or any of the things that both parties right now are seen to be their major problem, they have a very good chance of maybe changing the rules that now exist and even the laws.
Well said, Karen. And interestingly enough, maybe even the PNM in Tobago might be sensing the changing winds, because so far, Dr. B. Israel has reported that the working relationship between the PDP and the PNM has been going well. We'll see how it goes further on, but who knows? This might be the start of something new, even with political cooperation. But we have to stick a pin in that there. Unfortunately, we use up so much time in the more important topic. But we have to go to news on the hour on WESN. Stay tuned. We'll open up the phone lines when we come back. This is your content capital. This is WESN.
Seven is out, all day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories.
Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
In this season, we talk more about health, wellness, and everything in between. I am so excited to share with you everything about health and wellness so that you can design the life that you've always dreamed of. Join me here on What's Up Doc.
What's Up Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We the police officers, we are professional and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, it's for all of us in public.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
A reminder from WESN. We urge you to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19. Stay safe by taking some simple precautions. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Wear a mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose or mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay at home. If you have a fever, cough and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention. Following the above can help us all to help each other.
Welcome back to Talking Point, and I do hear the phones ringing, but I just want to sum up for our viewers the morning conversation. Of course, the big topic we had was with regards to disbandment of SORT and the implications of the commissioner's actions and how that might have been a factor with the merit list being withdrawn. Then we also briefly spoke about the situation, the ongoing situation in Tobago, but there are signs of hope for the future there, as well as the fact that the mandatory vaccination question, that comes to a head tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see what the government actually does. Who knows at this point in time? Because it doesn't seem to be a very good avenue for what it is that they say they intend to do, but we shall see. Now, we do have a caller on the line from Pitty Valley. Good morning, caller.
Morning, Sean and Miss Teixeira.
Morning.
I called to deal about the dismantling of SWOT. Miss Teixeira take it on two angles, but I want to take it in one angle. I'll contribute on one angle with the Commissioner of Police disbanding and Gary Griffith. Mr. Jacob is right to restructure the unit. Miss Karen Nunez articulate very well in all the things about Gary Griffith. Somebody falling down on a chair and dying. He personally handpicked that unit, and there was personally to answer to him alone. The Susu thing with that was his squad up there with the officer stuffing money in his pocket, and I could go on and on with what Miss Karen Nunez say. And Mr. Gary Griffith always think things is personal about him. And I never see a commissioner of police come out office and everything the new commissioner does come out and complain on Facebook and all on complain. It's not personally about Mr. Gary Griffith. So I think restructuring the unit have merit in it. And the other topic that Ms. Karen Nunez speak about, I would not tackle that yet. So that is my contribution this morning.
Sure, caller. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
I had wanted to add, Sean, very quickly.
Yes, quick.
That under the very quick. The new NOTF is going to require you to do polygraphing, drug testing, and a number of vetting. I don't know if that was what he did under his SORT, but under the SAUTT, which is under Patrick Manning, you could not be part of that unit unless you pass all of those tests. And now the NOTF, which has replaced his SORT, is going to require those things to be done.
We have a caller on the line from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Miss Teixeira and Sean. How are you all?
We're good.
I want to talk about Senator Vieira. I'm waiting for his resignation. The fact that he has done something, I wouldn't say silly, but untoward. He has brought the independent senators' bench in disrepute, and she has brought the judiciary into disrepute. I am hoping that the CJ get the cybercrime unit to investigate if, in fact, it occurs. If it hasn't occurred, then those two Court of Appeal judges have to go, because we have had many problems in appointing judges. Remember Caesar, remember this particular judge who had a DUI charge against him, and then we had a number of judges apparently changing the way the judiciary behave with respect to taking over cases. Now, if he did it in jest, then he has to go. The parliament has no place for people behaving like that. So I'm not too sure what the president waiting to tell him he has to go. Now, the other thing I want to talk about the police service. When you send home 35 potential witnesses, what you do into that investigation? Because the police are supposed to have been proactive. Somebody die, a toddler die. Don't wait for the Minister of National Security to tell you to investigate. You should be investigating. Because I believe the person who signed off to send them back, I believe it might be the minister. That is, from my vantage, I ain't no lawyer like Karen. It's misbehavior in public office. You hiding evidence. You know, one of the things the police is always saying, the mantra is, not only to protect yourself, if you see something, say something. You have 35 people saw something and willing to say something. And what have we done? And one of the easiest investigations to close off, let us find out if it's a self-defense, if the baby had a gun. Because remember that two children had guns too, down in Komoto.
Right.
And let us close it off. Why we continue to let this thing fester? It appears that there is something, basically collusion, to not bring it out. Remember the guy who in Komoto was shot dead? We haven't heard anything about that.
Yeah.
With the same issue about guns, toting children.
Okay.
I'm going to have a nice morning, people.
Okay, caller. I will answer you quick with regards to the witnesses. The only thing I'll say about that is if they already took their statements, the way how the judiciary takes too long here, I don't know if we could have kept them. That is, if they all gave statements. With regards to Senator Vieira, I will take the liberty to speak here for myself. I agree that his communication over the issue was not the best way to do it, and there are certain things he probably should not have said. I think the president is not necessarily going to get rid of him because at the end of the day, he was defending her. Now, he should not have brought the judiciary into the debate, but ultimately, I think this is not the most important issue. So while I agree with your sentiments on the independent senator, the fact that this seems to be the main issue that the opposition leader has brought out of the entire saga that started with the withdrawal of the merit list, that's where I now have a problem. There are more important issues of the day. Yes, I get it that this is also important, but the way how it's managed, I also feel that a lot of people might not realize how serious the allegations are that Kamala is making and how possibly true they are and how possibly right she is, because it's muddled, it's too muddled. Karen, you want to say anything with regards to the witnesses?
I don't want to say much on the issue with Anthony Vieira, because now I have to be full disclosure. He's a personal friend of mine. I have high regard for him. I think he made a mistake, but I will not give an opinion because it will obviously might be tainted by my own bias on that part. What I will say though, with regard to the Coast Guard and the migrants and so on, and then the Prime Minister saying they're bringing in prostitutes. Why you can never tell you about how much narcotics they're bringing into the country? Why don't they? Why it is they could only bring in these? Why can't they find the narcotics? Because just one thing, in 2010, in the Ansar, when Kamala Prasad was in the government, Colin Imbert was the one who clearly said that the drugs are coming in when guns are coming in from Southwest Peninsula. Why they could only find people and no narcotics? That's what I want to ask.
I mean, one interesting thing, and this might just be coincidence, but former Commissioner Griffith, he was very much willing to tout the successes on what they did intercept, on what they did capture, not necessarily letting us know exactly what else might be out there or where their investigations might have fallen apart. But the current administration has not had the same publicity, and I feel as though that now could be an interesting question when people are still asking for Commissioner Griffith, are they willing to live with the allegations against him if they're all true? Are they willing to have that as part of a commissioner who they feel is potentially tougher on crime? Because currently, right now, there's a lot of questions about crime, and I think people might be willing to compromise some of their principles and beliefs. When did he get a container of cocaine? When did he get a container of cocaine? You please tell me. Please tell me. And when is the second highest murder rate in this whole country under him? What are you? Let's look at facts and not the fiction that he has created of himself. Karen, here's devil's advocate. The 50 murders we had for January technically might put us on pace for a higher murder rate. So that, I mean...
yeah, I'm not saying no. I'm just saying that in 538 murders is nothing to boast about.
Yeah.
As you being the fighter against crime. And secondly, getting marijuana. We're tired of the marijuana talk. Get the cocaine coming out of Venezuela. When we see you getting the cocaine coming out of Venezuela, I'll become a believer. And I have not, and because we know that is at the root of most of the crime and gang and guns in this country, not the marijuana.
Folks, 623-9376, 622-9338. Call us. You don't have to speak on these topics that we spoke about this morning. You could bring up something else. Karen is only here once a week now, folks. If you have a question for her, Now is basically the only time. You'll have to wait until next week, Wednesday. If anything else has come up, please call in and let us know what it is you think. However, I don't know if Karen would necessarily want to talk about this. There has been talk about public sector reform on the surface. It's something that we want to see. You want to see the public sector being improved. I mean, the world over, the public sector has said to be inefficient and have its issues. It's not just unique to us. But you had something interesting to say off air, Karen. You've heard this kind of talk before, not so?
Yes, and even when Mr. Manning was in office, when I was government minister, and shortly before that, I think the person who really started the public sector reform conversation in a really deep way, he has died. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name, but he was very well. Draper, Gordon Draper was the one during the narrow days. The problem is poor implementation. You know, this has been, and of course, to change the constitution, you need a really special majority. So it's not as easy as it may appear, and we have to hear and see what are his recommendations.
We have a caller from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller.
Hi, you all. Good morning.
Morning.
Keaton, wherever you are. Mrs. Nunez, Teixeira, good to see you. I'm real simple today. You all just listed an entire COC chain of command. If I could recall
yes.
the acronyms, ACP, DCP, COP. Yesterday was PEP, PDP, PPP. I mean, it's just too many P's, and I do not know if they are impenetrable by all these C's in this country. Corruption, crime, and crooks. Can we ever be confident of that? Thank you. Bye.
Yes, we really are in a sea of corruption.
Is that sorry, thank you,
Prime Minister saying that.
Yes, no. It's always interesting sometimes with some of the poetry that particular caller from Diego Martin comes up with. But yes, it is somewhat ridiculous, especially now, given the fact that we can't even. I'm not sure if you could confidently speak of any politician not associated with one of those words. We have a caller from Chaguanas. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Professor.
I don't know if you all got time to check out what you promised yesterday, what I said about the NIB.
I haven't. I'm sorry, Professor. I did not do my homework.
No, it's a big problem. You could also look at government's promise to consolidate all the pensions, right? Because that has something to do with it. You could also look at why it is people pay for NIB pension and they get $3,000 everybody, and if you don't pay, you get old age pension more than that. These are the things that have caused the problem. And finally, why it is a public servant had to earn a pension over 33 years, but a politician over 15 years. When politicians were supposed to be people who have been successful and would have made their pension there. And if that had been added in the consolidated of pension, they would practically get nothing, because all these things make it a very complicated topic. Any questions?
No, not this morning, Professor. But that's an interesting point with regards to political pensions and the time difference between public servants and politicians, who are technically public servants.
And just to correct the issue with the NIB, I think that's an ongoing problem. We've spoken about it before. When we were in government, it's recognized by the actuaries that we are getting an older population and not as big a younger population to support the NIB. And so that it's at risk of, in a few years, not being able to service the pensions. And I think the pension requirement is 750 contributions that are required in order to qualify. And when it comes to the old age pension, how that operates is that once you qualify for the NIS pension and your only income is the NIS pension, the old age pension allows you to supplement it up to $4,500, so you can get $1,500 more. And that's part of trans fund subsidies, and that's part of a government's responsibility to its country.
Well,
but you're making some very good points.
We have another caller. All I'll say is the professor's point was there's also mismanagement with regards to that scenario. But we do have a caller from Aruka. Good morning, caller. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yes.
Singing pointers here.
Oh, Lord.
Costa living strongly in everybody. No food in the house to feed the family. It's a free fall here, I'm afraid. I believe we need to come together. Unscrupulous employers and unscrupulous workers couldn't care less. I dig in horrors. I dig in the blues. At any time I choose to peruse the daily news. I dig in horrors because all I read about is murderers, murders, and wars. Union only rioting and wrecking. People on the campus only campaigning. Lord, it is pure misery and hate. Me blood pressure in a terrible state. Union workers on a go slow. Sanitation men spreading gastro. I can't take no more. I dig in horrors. I dig in the blues. Anytime I choose to peruse the daily news.
He interviewing Sean for the Calypso competition.
No. Since the Calypso, thank you, caller. Since Tuko has decided to walk away from the competition, we here at Talking Point have to bring you the taste of Carnival. Our little taste of Calypso. Thank you, caller,
very
from
responsible.
I will admit though, every time he says singing point, I get afraid that he's asking me to sing. And then when he busts into song, then I realize, no, fool. It's not about me. It's about the talent of our caller calling in, and we always appreciate the effort. That was nice. That was nice. Thank you so much. And thank you. We have a little taste of Calypso still on Talking Point. However, we have another caller, director, from Diego Martin. Another caller from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller.
Good morning to you, beautiful Silver.
Morning.
I just want to touch on the drug situation.
Yes.
What Mr. Teixeira said concerning the cocaine is quite correct. That is the main drug that is damaging this country the most. And there's something that happened some time ago. I can't remember what year it was, but about a year or two ago, a beverage company on the highway found ammunition and cocaine and drugs. You have not heard anything about that again. So you see, that is what is happening in this country. So you guys have a good day and enjoy the best of it.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
And caller, guess what? The government knows it. And if you were to take a poll and persons were to put on a piece of paper who they feel are involved, I feel all of us will come up with some of the same names. And this government is pretending as though it does not understand that the major overriding root of our crime in this country is the cocaine trade. And they know it. Talk about prostitutes, talking about all this thing. Don't talk about that. Why don't you talk about the real problem in this country, the cocaine and the guns? Talk about that and start disrupting that trade, and then I'll be a believer.
Where's the
You'll
Coast
get
Guard
my
patrols for
support.
that? Well, we have the
Yeah,
final call.
It's Southwest.
The final call, folks, for the morning. Final call. Another caller from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller.
Morning.
Morning.
Yeah. I have a big problem with our boat people.
Sorry, what was that?
Yeah, good morning.
Morning, you're live.
I have a big problem with our boat people. I'm trying to get a boat people 5 years now.
You're trying to get a big TV?
I'm trying to get a boat people 5 years now. Right? We wasn't that much this year.
Sorry, caller, I can't hear you very well.
I will be 66 in March.
You want a march?
11th of March. Well, what they want me to do? They want me to, I have a mistake on my book paper, my surname, everything still wrong. Right? 11th of March. But everything wrong beside my last card. When I go into them, they I'm not so sure that I'm sure that I born 1957 and I born 19.
Okay, sir, the directors, I have been directed to tell you, give us your number off air, right? And maybe we have another show, Madam Fix It. She might be more suited to deal with your concerns and your issues, but stay on the line and they'll take your number off air so they can contact you to sort it out. Thank you so much for the call, and that is the last caller of the day. We're gonna have to wrap up the show here. Well, I mean, we had interesting feedback from our callers today, Karen, with regards to, so far, interestingly enough, nobody decided to disagree with your stance. So, you know, because usually we will have a supporter or two from whichever political party come and want to disagree. No one has decided to disagree with your stance. Maybe that's a sign that the population now is starting to understand, because it's a complex thing and we're getting information in drips and drabs and we're trying to piece it together, and ultimately we don't know everything.
Can you let me just say one thing, because you're not going to see me till Wednesday next week.
Yes.
You're sounding happy.
No.
Under the Corruption Perception Index, you might be very surprised that among the 6 factors that they look at in determining whether a country is corrupt is red tape. And when a country is bogged down with bureaucracy and red tape, it works for those who are wealthy and rich, who can snap their fingers and get things done. Whereas you at the bottom have to go through hoops, as this man seems to be going through, and maybe pay a little money sometimes. And that has been identified as one of the 6 major factors that they looked at in determining corruption perception in a country, the amount of red tape. And as I told you the last time, that's ease of doing business. We were 60-something in 2014. We have fallen to 104, 105. Is that by chance? And I told you that in Jamaica, they are able to have solved that problem, but that is what they have identified as part of the Corruption Perception Index. Well, okay, and that's my last point until next week, Wednesday.
That is Karen's final point. And no, Karen, I am not happy that we are not able to hear from you until next week, Wednesday. Now, I will add to what Karen said. I think, yes, there are a lot of changes coming out of this pandemic and coming with the recovery process. The PDP in Tobago is one, but there's a lot of international change as well. The inflation, the situation with energy prices, what's coming out of Guyana, that is going to change the whole dynamic of the Caribbean. Some of these things are good. Some of these things could potentially be very, 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 very bad. And I think ultimately we have to now not put our heads in the sand and try to pretend as though it's 2018 or 2014 or 2010 when things was nice or nicer. 2018 wasn't so nice, but things was nice back in some of those earlier years. Now is not then. Now is not even 2018. Now the challenges are even steeper. And we can't wait, as I always say, don't wait till the next election to decide, oh, I want to be involved and I don't like the candidates, so I'm not going to vote anyway. No, get involved now. Tobago made a big change. Barbados was involved. Barbados made a statement. Tobago made a statement too. So, folks, please, in all things, be responsible for yourself. Stay safe, keep well, watch the public health regulations because the pandemic, unfortunately, still is not technically over. Consider your decision to get vaccinated, and please, please don't be complacent. This is Sean Michael Small on behalf of Kanye Shishara. I'd like to thank all the callers. I'd like to thank Singing Point for that song. This is Talking Point on WESN. We'll be back tomorrow. Stay tuned for more content on your content capital. This is WESN.